I'm James Wilday. I've got a 13B Mazda RX-8 full tube drag car. Been into cars for a long while since I was young, going stock car racing with my dad. But then I got to about 15, 16 and one of my friends had a Metro like when we were younger, and we went to Santa Pod. Enjoyed it, just started watching the drag racing, and then as soon as I got like a little bit older and I could drive, I was already into cars and wanted to start modifying them. Bought a Renault 5 Turbo, and I was into the show stuff initially. I thought, oh, I'll put a big body kit on it, that sort of thing. But went to my first Santa Pod run what you brung, had a go, and yeah, I was pretty much hooked from there, from when I was about 19, and then just literally just started modifying anything I could, just break it, modify it, rebuild it, and carry on, sort of thing, for many years, and yeah, still doing it now. First got into Mazdas really probably about 2005. Initially, I just loved the look of the RX-7, the FD, just lovely looking car. Didn't know too much about the rotary when I first bought it, but just loved the sound of it. So I bought one of them in, it's like late 2005, and a lot of people get like the reliability issues, and I had a reliability issue straight away within the first couple of months. So I had the engine rebuilt and progressed straight into modifying it soon as I had my first rebuild, trying to push it from there on. I did that for many years with the FD until I think I finally stopped pushing that in probably about 2012. I'd accomplished pretty much everything I wanted to with the car, with the racing, apart from going to all-out drag sort of stuff, because it was fully street legal at the time. But then, because I knew I wanted to push even further, that's when I knew I needed to go different gearboxes, different type of roll cage, and chose to do it as an RX-8 because nobody really done it over here. And in Orlando, Florida, Puerto Rico, a lot of the cars that were being built were new style RX-8s, and they had lots of options to do with the stretch front ends and things like that, so it looked really nice. So I thought I'd do something a bit different, give one of those a try in Europe. So it really started as a complete RX-8. I bought it, I think it was 2012, 2013, when I decided I was going to use the RX-8 body, and literally just started chopping the thing up. Stripped it out, spent over a couple of days gutting it, and then started cutting all the inside out of it to get to what I actually needed. So it was chopped off from in front of the windscreen, all the firewall was gone, the bottoms of the doors, all the sills, they were all literally just chopped off. So it ended up with the A-pillar post around the side of the windscreen to the back door, and then the bit that come down to the back of the rear arch. That is the only original bit of the car that I kept, and the tail light. Other than that, the whole car is completely altered. New firewall, to make it all nice and flat, to make it easier for mounting the engine. Got all the panel work shipped in from Florida, so we had a stretch front end. Remember, it's about 8 to 10 inches longer than a standard RX-8 to help get everything in. Fiberglass doors, fiberglass rear doors to make it from a 4-door to a 2-door, just for a slightly different look. And then fiberglass bumpers, 2-piece tailgate as well, so that you can actually get into what would be the boot once the drag spoiler goes on the back, because you mount your battery in there, and otherwise you'd have no way of getting in once the fixed spoiler's on the back. Even all the little things of the shape of the front windscreen, the angle of that has been altered to try and just make it a little bit more aerodynamic and things like that, with the match up with the front end. Okay, the engine, it's a 13B Mazda, and based on a Cosmo, which was a Japanese coupe. So initially on the coupe, they have what's called a 13B RE. So the inlet runners are slightly bigger than a normal RX-7 engine. But this engine, it was based on that, but it's a full billet engine built, supplied by John Blanche Racing in Australia. They sent that over, then we set all the clearance up with my friend at Garage Reg. He's got a little company that does like rotaries. So we did all the clearances and built it all up. So it's got like a billet crank, all billet plates, brand new rotor housings, then low comp rotors have all been machined as well to make them even lighter. So we've dropped the compression ratio even further down to help for when we run the high amounts of boost. It's got a Gatto intake from Orlando, well known in the rotary scene that they flow a lot of air, and running that with a 91mm Precision Pro Mod turbo initially. Eventually I'd like to go bigger, but need to get the car working right first. The exhaust manifold, it's like big large runners built by Top Gear in Stockport. And literally, like, yeah, it's heavy duty. It's not going to move around, and certainly not going to crack. All the electrics for it was all supplied by John Blanche Racing as well. It's Microtech ECU. It's called a Big Bertha Microtech, so it's like 10 ignition drivers, built in like 90 PSI map sensor, specifically for drag racing. It can support, it's running 14 2,200cc injectors on methanol, so it's got plenty of fuel to keep me going all the way up to like 65% PSI boost. But it's just when you look into the fueling system, all the little bits, like dash 16 out of the tank to a pump, like then go to like dash 12 to a filter, and then you split in 3 ways to like 3 separate fuel rails. And then you'll return it all as well. So it's like dash 10 is your smallest line all the way back round to the tank. So rotaries are known for using a lot of fuel, and like with 14 injected, it soon empties that tank. You'd have to refill that tank after every pass, and it'll hold probably about 17-18 litres. So far, we've not really tested the car that much because it's still quite new. So I've still got lots of goals to make with this car. But my last car, when I used to race the RX-7, I used to race in the JDS street class. I won the championship in that it was 2010 and 2011. I'd had a few other like wins and like runner-ups before that as well, but that's when I knew I wanted to push a bit further. I constantly kept breaking gearboxes. Some of it was because it did have a lot of power, but some of it was I just wasn't sympathetic enough, like mechanically with the gearbox. It was going to do what I wanted when I wanted, sort of thing. So it was partly me, but the gearbox I wanted was a Liberty 5-speed, which is what I've got in this new car. But if I had that in the RX-7, it automatically put me in a pro class against the likes of like John Bradshaw with like the 350Z that he was running at the time. So that's why one of the reasons why I've gone to this new car, because if I've got that gearbox and I'm in a pro class, might as well have a tube car to get the benefit of it. The first time I went out testing with it, you're trying to obviously sort out all the teething problems of a new car, but I broke the gearbox in the rear end on the first pass. So that held me back a little bit until I went back out in the summer of 2019. I was on power to half track and I still ran an 8.8, so I've sort of equalled my PB of my old car being only on power to half track. But then I spun a bearing, my own fault again. I'd ran the car a little bit low on oil, thought I was going to get away with it, and I didn't. I spun a bearing, and so that was the end of the weekend. I've made alterations to it since by where it does the oil pickup in the sump, lengthened that and put it at the back of the engine rather in the middle. I've got aims, I want to try and get down to like the low 1.0s for the 60 foot. Anything below a 1.10, I should be good enough for where I need to be, but yeah, 1.05 60 foot. But the eventual goal is this year, just try and get some nice clean passes. I think I'll go 7s quite easily once I'm on power for the full length of the quarter of a mile. But the eventual goal is to go mid to late 6s at 205, 210, and see where we go from there. But that's the eventual goal for it. I've been working on the car all winter, just like loads of little jobs all the while. I was trying to get out in March to start doing some testing, but with COVID, I've already found out that those test days have already been cancelled. So then keep working, try and get on to the next one, maybe April, mainly to try and get to an event called Door Slammers at Santa Pod. It's a massive event normally. Last 2 years, people have been coming from all over Europe to race at that event. So it's like you get a massive turnout of absolutely anything and everything. It's one of the best events for me of the year, so I'll get to that, start testing at that one, or certainly trying to push it, and then see what other sport compact events are going to be held later on in the summer, or if I can get to any of the competition eliminator events, and then see how the rest of the year pans out after that.